Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name is Tanya. Have you ever wished that you had just a really good, refreshing drink, especially for the summertime, that was not only delicious, but it's carbonated, but kind of a dream come true here. It's really good for you? Well, I think I have something you might be interested in. If you've ever had kombucha, this fits all those bills. I mean, every single one of them, because it is a natural probiotic, and I'm going to show you how to make this from scratch. Now, you'll have to have a bottle of store-bought kombucha. You're maybe out $3. But from then on, you can make your own as much as you want, anytime you want. It takes it a few days to ferment, and when you're done, it's a natural carbonation to it. It's so funky, it's so delicious, and you can flavor it with whatever fruit juice you want if you want fruit juice in it. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to make it from scratch. Get ready. The first thing we're going to do is get 2 cups of filtered water. Please don't try to use tap water. It just doesn't necessarily work with this process. So you'll be good to get some filtered water, either bottled from the store, or if you have a Berkey filter like I do, that is ideal. Next thing we want to do is get our saucepan. You can tell that I have made lots of kombucha in this because it is made with tea, and tea has stained the inside of this. This is not a metal pan. Now, the inside of it's metal as far as the inside of the product itself, but this is an enamel coating on it. This is it's a metal pan coated with porcelain enamel. So ideally you would need a glass pan, something obviously heat proof, but something that's not metallic. Set it on your burner. We're going to add our 2 cups of water. And when the water begins to boil, we're going to add 2 tea bags. And this is organic oolong tea. And this is the kind that you need. Not necessarily this brand, but you need a good quality oolong tea. This does not work with every type of tea, especially an herbal tea. It will not work with herbal tea. It has to be regular tea. But this is the kind I prefer, and this is pretty easy to find. But we're going to add 2 tea bags to it and steep it once it starts boiling. Our water is starting to boil, and we're going to put our 2 tea bags in there. We'll put a lid on it. Turn the burner off. Our tea has been steeping for about 5 minutes. And you want to take those tea bags out of there. And one way to avoid burning your hands on the tea bags is to place them in a spoon. Get an identical spoon. Now we're going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar to this. And this is, you can use organic sugar, or you can use, this is an unbleached. It's called Zulka, and you can get it at your big supermarket in town that I'm pretty sure you probably have one. And you'll notice it's kind of a beige color. It's just natural colored. It's not been bleached, so that's the ideal situation. This is actual sugar cane sugar and not beet sugar, so that's another thing, and it's very, very low processed. We want to pour this in there. We're going to stir it to dissolve the sugar. And we'll just let that dissolve. We're going to let this cool down to at least 90 degrees or less. So just leave it there for a while, and we'll be back in just a bit. Here's our tea and sugar mixture, and the sugar has dissolved. We're going to pour it in this 1/2 gallon jar. You don't have to have a jar this big, but I'm going to eventually wind up using this to ferment my full amount. Now, some of the sugar isn't quite dissolved, so you can always pour it back and forth in there. I might have to scrub it on the bottom. This is just a strong sweet tea. Well, and this is what the kombucha bacteria, if you will, thrives on. What we're trying to do is produce a SCOBY. You've heard people talk about SCOBY. SCOBY stands for symbiotic culture of bacterial yeast. So to keep from saying that long title every time, you just call it a SCOBY. But a SCOBY looks like a floating blob. It literally looks like a piece of transparent leather. That's what it reminds me of, because you can't hardly tear it with your hands. It is just, it's really substantial. But that's where this good grief, this sugar is not giving up. Very tenacious. The SCOBY feeds on tea, and it feeds on the sugar. And the byproduct of the bacteria in there consuming this sugar is the carbonation, thus being some probiotics in there too. So this is not only refreshing, it's not only delicious, it's not only one of those things you get to choose your own flavor, but it is so good for you. And because the bacteria consume the sugars, it's not like you're getting a high sugar content drink. So this is not like just drinking a glass of sweet tea from Sonic. So don't even think you're getting something equal to that. Better for you, and I think it would taste better. Okay, this is what we're going to be using. This is GT's brand raw kombucha. This is just original flavor. This doesn't have a gingerberry or a strawberry serenity flavor, even though that one's my favorite. So what we're going to do is open this. You can see the carbonation in there. Whoa. Yep, that's some carbonation in there. And all I did was take the bottle and go like this, trying to get that little bit of sediment out of the bottom. Okay, that's a lot of carbonation. We're going to pour the entire contents of this bottle into that. Save your bottle. Save any of these size bottles you have. These glass bottles are great to store the kombucha in. So what we're going to do at this point, at room temperature, somewhere out of direct light, we're going to cover this. This is just a circle of fabric that I cut from scrap fabric and just a stretchy elastic. Put it around that, cover it to make sure no bugs will get in, because gnats and stuff will be really, really attracted to this because it's going to be fermenting. We're going to leave this in here for 10 days. So put it in an area that doesn't get direct sunlight, direct heat, a lot of wind, just where nobody will bother it. In 10 days, we're going to come back and check on this, and the SCOBY is going to be floating on the surface of this. This will then be ready to be consumed, and then we'll use that SCOBY and a little bit of the kombucha to make our next batch of kombucha. So stick around. We'll come back and take care of that. That's about a half a cup, as you can see on there. Going to stir it to dissolve, and then we're going to let this sit here and cool to room temperature. You cannot use water that's too hot or tea that's too hot to put in your kombucha. It will kill the SCOBY. So let's let this come to room temperature, and we'll continue on. Okay, continuing on with our kombucha. This is what this looks like. Now this is only 4 cups of the mixture right here, but this is our starter mix, and this is our SCOBY in the top. I'm going to show you what this looks like. And again, this is just a piece of cloth, just a circle that I cut out of fabric, and just a piece of elastic. This looks like a hair tie. It's not really a hair tie, but you could probably use a hair tie. All right, I'm going to use my wooden spoon right here. And this looks like, looks kind of like a jelly mixture, and it looks like it would fall apart, but I'm here to tell you, this stuff is even hard to cut with a knife. I wish I could have a better description of what this is, but it's almost like a soft leather. That'd be my best description. Okay, I'm just going to put this right here just to keep from making a mess. I'm going to transfer my liquid over into another jar, or part of it. So here's the process. You want to take about 1 cup of this mixture and reserve it, or actually pass it on. This is going to be like a heritage thing. You're going to put 1 cup of this in your next jar. So you'll have 2 half-gallon jars here. Just 1 cup of that. Now this is what we're going to make our first batch of kombucha with. And all I'm going to do to that is add just some crushed, I had a couple of frozen strawberries in the freezer. Just going to add that to it. I'll rinse this cup out with it just to make sure I get all of it. And that's it. What this is called is second fermentation. And that's just going to have fruit added to it. So now I'm going to set this aside for just a minute, but I'm going to wind up putting this lid on this, because during the second fermentation, we don't want to necessarily let the airflow go in, which this was allowing the air to go in, but just to keep the fruit flies and bugs out of it, because fruit flies are very, very attracted to this fermentation. So we're going to wind up putting the lid on this, and it's going to lock that air in, and the carbonation will get to go in the end. So it'll be almost like a soda within about 2 days. So to this, we're going to add our tea mixture and sugar that we just made earlier this morning. So we steeped 4 tea bags of our organic green tea, no, oolong tea, sorry, oolong tea, and added a half cup of sugar to it, got it dissolved, and it has cooled to room temperature. This is my pan. This pan isn't really dirty, it's just stained, because this is what I make my kombucha in. It's a tea stain. So we're going to bring this water or this liquid level up to about 6 or 7 cups. I'll put it at 6 cups right now. And take our SCOBY and drop it in there. So this is going to now be what this was on the first go round. So this SCOBY is going to go in there, and by the time we do this the next time, within about a week, this will be in here about 7 days this time, you'll want to take your SCOBY and tear it or cut it in half, because otherwise it just keeps growing. And the bigger it is, the more it eats. It's actually a live thing. So for right now, we're going to put our cloth cover back over it, put our elastic on it, and we're going to change the date on this. Well, not change the date. This is the date, the 3rd of July is when we're making this. So in about a week, we'll know what the date was that we made this. So this one will be ready in a couple of days. Put that in there. Put the lid on it. And if all goes well, this will have enough carbonation in it to where when I take this lid off in a couple of days, it'll kind of get a little foamy, and then when I pour it into a couple of bottles to store it in the refrigerator at that point, because we want it to stop its fermentation process. So we store it in the refrigerator after that, but for a couple of days, it'll ferment, it'll get carbonation in it. When I take the lid off, it'll be kind of foamy, and I have to be careful pouring it in the bottles or it'll overflow. So we'll come back in a couple of days when I take this lid off and pour it into bottles, and you'll see the carbonation to it. So meanwhile, we're going to put this in the laundry room where there's not as much direct sunlight and let it do its first fermentation. So this is how the process goes. We get one going to drink, and then we have another one waiting in the wings in its first fermentation process. So hopefully this all makes sense, and I try not to make it too confusing, but you'll need your 2 half-gallon bottles to start out with, and that's how we make our SCOBY for the first go-round. Okay guys, we're on our last step for our kombucha, and I think it's fizzy. This has been in the second fermentation where we added the crushed strawberries. Now let me back up just a bit. When I said I add crushed fresh strawberries or crushed fresh strawberries or crushed frozen strawberries, that doesn't exclude any other kind of fruit juice. You can add apple juice, you can add pineapple juice, you can add any kind of juice that you want. Fresh fruit, you can add fresh pineapple, you can add all kinds of stuff to this, just anything you can come up with, a combination of fruits. Add just a little bit to it because you don't want just an overwhelming fruit flavor, but you want it to be flavored enough to where you can taste what you're drinking. So my fruit of choice is strawberries. So we've put those in there. This has done its second fermentation for 2 days now. So it's been sitting in my laundry room where there's very minimal direct sunlight in there. Of course we have lights, and it has a window in there from the sunroom, but it's not direct light. So this has been sitting in there, and it's kind of foamy on the top. And if you want to strain out the seeds or any of the fruit pieces, you're welcome to. I kind of like mine left in there, so we're going to leave them in there. So we're going to give this a stir. And sometimes when the SCOBY gets really good and your kombucha starts just brewing really, really nicely, especially if the weather's warm like it is now, when you give it a stir at the end and you have it filled up to this level right here, it will come over the top, and it goes fast too, just like if you were to open up some kind of big bottle of root beer or something. So it's kind of funky. But we're going to put these in these 2 bottles. Now remember, later on, you'll have a larger amount. This was just my first batch of this kombucha, and it only makes about a quart of kombucha this time. The other batches will make a half gallon, so 2 quarts. So these are lids that I saved from our GT's kombucha before that we bought from the store. I have several of these because I used to love kombucha, and I would always save the bottles because I just don't throw things like that away. All right, so I want to show you my fancy funnel. Once upon a time, I must have gone to some kind of get-together where somebody served, it looks like a Sprite or some kind of drink soda. I don't buy those things, so I asked him, I'm sure I asked him if I could have the bottle before the party was over, and everybody else was taking nice things home, and here I am with my empty soda bottle. But I just cut the top of it off, and I use this probably more than any funnel in my whole house. I have stainless steel ones, I have small ones, I have large ones, and this is probably my favorite funnel. You know, just the trash novelty of it. So we are going to just pour our kombucha into our bottles. And these bottles are going to go directly into the refrigerator. And you want to chill it before you drink it. You can drink at room temperature, but it certainly is much better when it's chilled. All right, so that bottle's ready to wash. Put the lids on those tightly. And these are now ready to go in the refrigerator. And as soon as they get cold, they're ready to drink. So thanks for watching, guys. I really hope you've learned something from this, benefited from this. And if you are a lover of kombucha like I am, then you will appreciate the fact that it's just pennies a serving to make this, not $2.95 a bottle. So hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. We look forward to sharing something again with you soon, and make this during the summertime. I think you will be surprised at how refreshing this is. What a good replacement for soda, which has actually 0 benefits. In fact, it's kind of on the negative scale of benefits because the sugar and sometimes the artificial colors and stuff. So no benefit to soda, lots of benefits to this. It's a natural probiotic. See you later.